Welcome to the Soft Life with Sadie Baddies. Sadie Baddies is the antidote to mental health stigma, and this podcast is hosted by yours truly, Priscilla O. Adjaman. We are a virtual sanctuary centering Black and multiracial people, and we prioritize the mental and emotional nourishment that is the foundation of collective healing in our communities. Thank you for being here. Welcome back to the Soft Life podcast. Today we have a very special guest with us. We have Raven Irabor, and Raven is a Trinidadian, Nigerian, Pan-African image maker. She's a model and curator based between New York City and LA. Right now, she is currently in New York City, so back on the East Coast. And Raven has over 10 years of experience working in media, fashion, advertising as a producer, and her personal work is also heavily informed by her culture. Raven is also the founder and CEO of Ray Studios and recently has in exhibits and galleries in LA and is back in the East Coast. And we are so excited to have you, Raven, here with us. Welcome to the Soft Life podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you feeling?
I'm good. I feel like, as you mentioned, I just moved back to the East Coast, back to New York, which is, I'm originally from the Bronx. So it feels kind of like I'm settling in and a little bit like all over the place, but I'm here and I feel good. So, yeah.
I love that. I love when you can make that change and that transition, but you're still like just getting your roots down. You're feeling grounded. I'm happy to hear that. Welcome back to the East Coast.
Thank you.
So I know that you mentioned you're originally from the Bronx, but can you tell us your origin story in your own words and what city, resonates with you the most? And just kind of tell us where the early parts of your upbringing were.
Yeah, so New York resonates with me the most. I feel like when I lived in LA for almost 6 years. And even being there, I'm like, I am a New Yorker through and through. I still have my Metro card on my phone. Like, New York City is definitely the city that scoped and shaped and raised me. I think, especially when I think about my own just career journey and my artistic practice, and who I am as a creative, like New York just has so many people from the African diaspora. And when I moved to LA, just thinking about just like geography and migration, like people from the Caribbean, people from specifically West Africa, even people from Europe, they're closer to the East Coast. So when we think about migration and people are trying to come to America for a better life, they tend to migrate more so to the East Coast and in particular, New York. So I grew up seeing all types of Black people and never having to question or understand like what is a Black person, and the ways that I think when you move more west, there are different confusions on like Blackness and what Blackness looks like. So grateful for New York to really introduce me to what the diaspora can look like. And then within my own household being, my mom's from Trinidad, my dad's from Nigeria, and we traveled a lot when I was younger. So being exposed to culture and traveling in different communities. And then again, what the global diaspora looks like from youth, really, again, like impacting what my global perspective looks like when it comes to being a Black person. And then in addition, going back to New York and thinking about my artistic practice, even outside of Pan-Africanism, New York is just a city that like cultivates creativity. Like I always say, like LA allowed me to be focused because LA is not as busy and hectic, but New York inspires me. There's so much inspiration just on the streets of New York, taking the train, seeing how people dress, how they talk, all of like the beautiful ads that are on the train or on the walls as you walk through New York City. And I grew up also in the Tumblr era. So really inspired by Tumblr, going to the Tumblr meetups in New York where, it was just like Black and Hispanic creatives, just like doing their thing, whether they were photographers, designers, filmmakers, musicians, all the things, and just seeing how a lot of those people have grown within the industry since then. So yeah, that's kind of my upbringing.
Yes, I love that you mentioned the Tumblr era because that was such a big cultural moment. And I think we're just seeing kind of a resurgence of it, but it's on TikTok and it's on other platforms now.
Yeah.
But Tumblr really really, really sparked a lot of creatives that we know today, like yourself. So, can you tell us a little bit more about like what was like teenager Raven like? Were you just like one of those kids that was like always in art class, or were you kind of, you know, more of the nerdy side? Like, what was your vibe when you were younger, and how do you feel like you're inspired by that today?
Yeah, that's a good question. Teenager Raven. So I went to Catholic school my whole life until I went to college. So college was in some ways a little bit of a culture shock. I went to an all-girl Catholic high school. So I
Mm,
was not around boys until college. Had a uniform, so did not like dress, you know,
yeah.
express myself through my clothes per se, but had other creative outlets. So me and my friends had like a t-shirt line in high school where we made these cool t-shirts, and the brand was called Nostalgia Apparel. We also sold tutus, like very crafty
Hmm.
teenagers. Because my personality type, even though going to an all girls school, we also had like boys schools that were affiliated to our girls school. So it wasn't like you didn't have
Hmm.
access to boys, but that just like wasn't my focus. Like I literally was
Mm,
a Tumblr kid. I went home, went on Tumblr, went to SoHo for all the meetups,
hmm.
went to SoHo to chill and eat and all the things. So like I was very much, I was a great student. I will always been a good student. I love academia. I don't like homework. Still did my homework then, but
Mm,
if I went back to school now, it would not be to do homework. It would just be to like just continue education. So I love academia. Always been good in school. Um, it was like in AP classes, internships, all the things. But after school, me and my friends would go get sushi, go to SoHo, go on Tumblr, create our t-shirt line. What's interesting too, I've been applying to different programs for like just like my film and other creative
hmm.
projects that I'm doing that requires me to reflect on like teenage Raven.
Hmm.
And there's things that I did as a teenager that I now as a professional was like, oh, I was creative directing, I was producing. Because for the t-shirt line, I was producing creative direct all of our shoots that we did. But that
Hmm.
wasn't like the language that I had. It was
Right.
just like,
That
okay,
you
we're
would
doing
use
these
at the
photo shoots
time.
in Soho and whatever. So I think like Teenage Raven really created the foundation of like just the things that I was interested in because I was really just an exploring, curious kid roaming the streets of like Lower Manhattan.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you were cool as hell. So with all
Thanks. I
that
was super
description,
quiet.
I know. I
Also,
feel like we would have been friends in high school because
yeah,
a lot of what you described sounds a lot like what I used to do with my friends. We used to get sushi. We used to do like our little creative projects. I was definitely on like the nerdy side though. Like
mm,
I took science classes and like ended up being a bio major, but I always had that artistic side of like I like to
yeah,
paint and draw. So I'm sure we would have like had a crossover and been like, let's hang
for
out.
sure, for sure. Yeah, yeah. The nerd
Yeah,
people
that's dope.
like I feel like discount the value of like having both sides. So I think as an adult,
Yes.
I'm like I have the like left brain and right brain part of
Yes,
me that
yes,
I
for
feel like has
sure.
helped me a lot. And I grew up as a dancer too, so I didn't mention that. But I grew up dancing
Oh,
up until
dope.
I finished college. So I was
Mm.
doing a lot of like modern, and since I went to Catholic school, we also had a praise dance team, which is
Hmm.
kind of odd, but we
Oh,
brought in
girl,
a
I
praise
know.
dance.
I know what that is. I was in it, trust me.
So yeah, I did African, did modern, did a bunch of like
Hmm.
jazz. I did like tap for a little bit, ballet. And in college, I was in a Caribbean dance team all 4 years. So dance was also like music, dance. I was in choir. I think in high school, that was like in schools in particular, that was my artistic outlet was like music
Hmm.
um, through dance and like choir. And I took like piano lessons and all those things.
That
Yeah.
is so dope. That's so, so dope. I love to hear it. Well, what would you say, or how would you describe what your day to day life is now? Like, what would be a day in the life of Raven today as a creative, a multi hyphenate, an entrepreneur, all the
Yeah.
things?
Yeah, I mean, right now, as I said, my life is a little bit of an upheaval since I'm back. But I think
Hmm.
in general, I'm always working on as I said, also really organized. I'm trying to get back into like, I use Asana as a project management system in
Yeah.
Notion,
Yeah.
um, and just trying to plan my day. So right now, I'm trying to get back into having certain days dedicated to certain projects. I had a woman
Hmm.
that I was like working with in LA, and I was like, "How are you balancing everything?" And she's like, "Yeah, I work on this project on Tuesdays, this project on Wednesdays." So it was a practice that I started when I was in LA that I found a bit
Hmm.
helpful. So once I moved back to New York, trying to
Hmm.
reorganize myself by kind of separating my days in that way. But it's a lot of like reviewing creative answering emails, reaching out to people. I feel like I do a lot of outreach all the time. A lot of like strategic planning of like just timeline, like what does the rollout look like? How can I backfill? What's at risk? Where do I need support? I think especially as I've like grown in my creative practice, like thinking about just like outsourcing, like I don't have to do everything. And I also don't want to do everything because I'm not an expert at everything. And there's people who's good at what they do. So how can I like lean into those people and get, just get their support. And then I'm taking a career coaching program right now. So just in that trying to, since I'm not working right now, I'm looking for employment. So I'm like, okay, let me get a career coach. Let me get, figure out how I can find new ways of getting jobs. Because I think the current job hunting process right now is ineffective. Like going on LinkedIn and,
Yeah.
code applying or whatever, that we're traditionally taught to do. So I'm in this program called Career Evolves, which I really, really like. So that's been my life right now. And going to like different, as I've been in New York, going to different like art events and just trying to like get back into the social scene because New York is such a social city.
Right.
So wanting to, dip my toes back into the social scene.
Yeah, I feel that. I mean, it sounds like you are really, despite the fact that you have uprooted from LA and are back on the East Coast in New York, it sounds like you have a plan still, like even in that liminal space, which we'll get into
Yeah.
next. But you know, technically we're in a liminal space, like coming and moving. And then also sounds like you are really organized and very intentional about your next steps. Like even though
Yeah.
you don't have like the clear, okay, this is exactly what I'm doing next, you're making like very deliberate and intentional steps to get you to where you want to be, as well as being organized and strategic about it, which I feel says a lot about you as an artist, because sometimes I do think that artists get a rep of being disorganized or being like
Yeah.
too type B, or just being very like, oh, like just go with the wind. I don't know if you're a Virgo, but sounds like you have the
I'm an
organization
Aries.
in the Aries. Oh, dope, dope, dope. Okay. So fire sign. I'm a fire sign too. I'm a Sag.
Okay.
But it's great to hear that you are strategic and organized and intentional about your next steps and welcoming in those opportunities. So I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah, I'm in my Saturn return right now. What I've just discovered that I am.
Mm,
So I think that it's an interesting time because even though I have
yeah.
this like intentionality, and in general, I'm a person that knows what I want out of life. But right now, it also kind of feels I'm like going back to what you said with being in the liminal space. I'm like figuring out if some of the things that I've kind of worked towards my entire life, so to speak, are things that matter to me, realigning with like myself. Even this physical return to home right now feels
Mm-hmm.
like really interesting part of my journey right now. And that
Mm-hmm.
departure from LA and what LA kind of meant to me and the things I experienced and shedding all of those things. So yeah, experiencing all of this while being in my Saturn return and trying to reintroduce myself to myself has been an
Mm-hmm.
interesting process these last like couple of months.
Yes, I could not agree more. I mean, your Saturn return, can you actually share what Saturn return means for people who aren't listening? I'd love to hear it in your words of what you're
Okay.
experiencing. Is I mean, I've been a few, I would say about a couple years past my
Mm.
Saturn return, technically, my transit, because I'm 31. But yeah, when you know you're in your Saturn return, you know, but I would love for you to
Yeah.
share what that means to you.
Yeah. I hope I don't like butcher it, but from what I understand, the Saturn return, it's like when I guess Saturn literally returns back to like
Hmm.
where it was placed on your birth date in
Yeah.
time. So it's a lot of about like re-shedding,
Yeah.
re-understanding who you are, what's important to you. It can feel very rough and tough because there's a lot of like letting go of people and
Hmm.
things and environments that you may have felt aligned with. I think it's a time period of a lot of like learning, personal education, personal growth. And again, I think just like figuring out what is important to you and getting closer to your future self. So you see, I think, a lot clearly like, okay, this is where I want to be, and that gap may begin to close because you're getting more just aligned with who the future you is. And it
Yeah.
can be scary. I
Mhm.
think I'm in a grateful and a privileged position where I'm actually really excited. I'm like, I actually have no idea what's going to happen, and I'm really looking forward to like this entire journey.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope I described it right.
I think you did. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I
Yeah,
mean, it means different things to different people, but the just like you said is like about shedding, it's about rediscovering. And sometimes people feel like they might even hit like a rock bottom, but sometimes it's not even that deep
yeah,
of a tr- transition or evolution. Sometimes it's about the subtleties that happen throughout the way, right? So
yeah.
love that you shared that. And for anyone who's in their Saturn return right now, sending mad love, because I know it can be tough, but hopefully,
Yeah,
hearing stories of people who are going through it or have been through it is inspiring and can help you along the way.
absolutely.
But I really would love to talk about your very recent exhibit that you had at the Galley, which the Galley 90220 in LA. And this exhibit named Last Night I Cried, Unveiling Liminal Spaces is a beautiful piece that you self-directed and produced. And I would love to know, what was your inspiration behind creating that exhibit, and what's kind of the backstory, what inspired that? Even the name alone is like so beautiful and like
Thank
kind of
you.
makes you wonder, okay, what does that mean? So I would love for you to get into it and share with us.
Yeah, so last night I cried unveiling liminal spaces was at Gallery 90220. It's a
Mm-hmm.
Black owned gallery in LA. And going back to this theme of like Saturn return, which at the time I didn't really like, I don't think I even knew what it was. Um, but I know Saturn return happens between the ages of like 27 and 30. Um, and I went through a really emotional heartbreak, and a breakup that I think, as I was dealing with all of the emotions that come through with breakup, I'd even think about the fact that I was heartbroken. It wasn't until I started working on this
Mm-hmm.
project, and I worked with a somatic intimacy consultant. And during
Mm-hmm.
the photo shoot, because it originally was not supposed to be an exhibition, it was really just like I wanted to do a shoot with this photographer who lived in New York but moved to LA, because I loved their work. His name is Sasha. And I was like, I'll hit you back when I have an idea. And then I'm a person as a creative, like I don't force myself to do ideas or to execute on
Yeah.
projects unless it comes to me. So it just was like, it truly just came to me like I want to do something that is um, a reflection of like the emotions that I'm experiencing right now, and kind of use this as a cathartic healing
Mm-hmm.
process as I'm going, like just dealing with this heartbreak and on my own personal healing journey. Um, so I work with a somatic intimacy consultant, and her name is Carly, and she introduced me to this book by Brene Brown. I believe it's called The Atlas of the Heart, and we used this book
Mm-hmm.
as well as like other wellness practices to get me ready for the shoot. And in the book, she was just like kind of like highlight different um, definitions that you align with. So the Atlas of the Heart, they kind of break out like different sections of rage and heartbreak and sadness and all these kind of like different
Mm-hmm.
emotional guides, and they define it really in depthly. So when I came across the chapter that was talking about heartbreak, I was like, this is literally what I'm experiencing. And it almost feels like obvious, like if you're going through a breakup, you would be experiencing heartbreak, but I didn't really like define it as such. Like I was like, I'm sad. I had a lot of anger. I had a lot of anger and rage, um, which I've learned was like it's kind of secondary emotion. Um, Anger comes from, maybe you're disappointed or you're sad and you're confused, and now
Right.
experiencing anger.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, during that time, as I was going through my own healing journey, like I went to therapy, and I was working at Meta, so I had access to free therapy at the time. And just
Mm-hmm.
knowing that that's just not something a lot of us have access
Yeah.
to. A lot of people also don't have access to working at these types of companies. Um, and a lot of us don't really think that breakups are something that you should be going to therapy for. one of the things that I wanted to do with the exhibition is to normalize heartbreak and breakups because it's something that everyone goes through. And that's something that Brene Brown talks in the book that, like, you know, the moment that you open yourself up to love, you're opening yourself up to heartbreak. So people who are daring, like, there's a courage to be able to love someone, knowing that heartbreak can be the result of that. And it's human to open yourself up to love. If you're not doing that, then it's like, are you really living a full human life? Um, so after doing the shoot and just seeing, I just thought that the images were just so beautiful and wanted to do something more. And as I continued with my own personal healing journey and just saw how my community showed up for me, which is something that I didn't expect. Um, just didn't kind of, again, there's a lot of shame that goes with breakups. So it wasn't something that I expected my community to be really empathetic towards it. I feel like I almost expected people to be like, forget him. He's like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of energy. And it was a lot of like,
Yeah.
I'm sure that's a lot. Are you okay? I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
And it just made me, one, just so grateful that I had people around me to create that space of community for me. So when I thought about doing the exhibition, my main goal was to create a space of community healing because that was what I had. And again, realizing that's not something that everyone has access to, and wanting to partner with a nonprofit, She Recovers, who helps women and women of color with mental health resources and self-recovery. Because again, I know that that's not something that we have access to. So really looking at like, where's the areas that on my own healing journey that helped me the most, knowing that this is something that, an experience that we all go through, but it's not normalized because there's a lot of shame. There's a lot of shame, especially amongst Black women and women of color culturally when it comes to just like having a man, what does it mean to be attached to a man, especially if you're in a heterosexual relationship? What does it mean to like deal with heartbreak? Again, a lot of people's like, you could just find another man, like, and sometimes that's just not the energy that you need. um,
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
really just like wanting to humanize our experience, showcase us in a space of vulnerability and then having those conversations. So it was, other than the work on the walls and in the space, and like we will get into how like the space was designed, but even like the programming, like it wasn't just like, come and look at the art and have an artist talk about artists talking about how great their work is, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
even the programming was intentional. Like we had, one of the panels was about how to use art as a healing modality. We had mindfulness artists, we had therapists on the panel to really talk about like,
Mm.
inform people that there's a thing such as art therapy, right? Like art cannot just be used as art's sake and just a form of just like sometimes I think art can be used very much in a commercial sense where it's just about this individual genius and not really understanding the true healing power that art can give um, for people. So that was one of the panels. We had a sister circle and a sound bath for women. Yeah, we just had a lot of things that for me was like, this space is about healing. Art is the door to open for people to enter, but it's not what it's truly about. So yeah, that's kind of how everything came together.
That is incredible. That is so beautiful. And I wish I was there. Honestly, would have loved to be there and to see and witness, obviously, the exhibition itself, but also all of the other incredible experiences that you curated. It sounds, this really just goes back to what we always say, that self-care is community care, and you literally did
Yes.
that through community. You found a way to heal yourself and recover from that heartbreak, but you also used it in the reverse too. And it's beautiful that you were able to share that experience and bring in other people to not only witness it but also benefit from you creating that space. So I'm just really,
Thank you.
really in admiration of that. That is so beautiful.
Thank you.
Um, and yeah, just applaud you for that. Heartbreaks are really difficult to navigate in general, and
Yeah.
heartbreaks can literally destroy someone, their sense of self, their ego, their trust, their ability to connect with others. What were some practices that you did? I know you shared, obviously, incorporating somatic healing and having a somatic healing consultant and therapists and other artists as part of the curation of
Yeah.
what you um, produce with Last Night I Cried. But what specific ways did you alchemize that pain into art? Were there any spiritual practices or any self-care or social interactions that helped you alchemize that pain?
Yeah, so for me, when the breakup like happened and it was officially like, okay, we're cutting ties, I one allowed myself to experience all the feelings, and luckily I was in a position where I was working from home, so there were days that I was just like, I need to lay in bed and work on my bed. I'm gonna do that. um, but I think one of the things that I did in part of the exhibition, there's a short film that I directed where one of the questions we asked the woman was like, how do they get back to themselves? And that's also why I wanted to partner with that nonprofit, because it's like self recovery is a big thing, because I felt like I
Mhm.
entered the relationship whole and left in pieces. And that wasn't something that I've experienced before. I've never felt like a person that felt incomplete or broken, right? And having to like literally pick up the pieces back again. So a lot of the months post breakup was about picking the pieces back up again. So I started going to an esthetician because my skin was breaking out and looking crazy. And I was like, I need to
Mm.
pour into myself in this way and invest in myself in this way. So I got an esthetician. I got a physical trainer. So I was getting my, what I call it at the time, my revenge body. I was like, by the summertime, I'm gonna be
Yes.
hot and you're gonna be like, so I was in the gym heavy. Um,
Period.
uh, I'm really into like my gratitude practice. So
Hmm.
continuing that, and then therapy. I would say those were like the three like
Yeah.
immediate shifts that were different from what I was doing before. Like the physical therapist, esthetician, and therapy were like, okay,
Mhm.
I need to do these things to make myself feel good. And I also was just really into like, okay, how can I make myself feel like, I was just like, yo, I'm young and I'm hot and I need to feel this way. I need to
Hmm.
exude this energy. Like, I'm not going to let this person like kind of take that energy away from me. And I don't want to like identify as these feelings only attached to this person because this person made me feel this way. Like, I need to figure out
Yeah.
ways that I can feel young and hot and sexy for myself. So
Period.
that was kind of like what I was like, just trying energy that I was trying to tap into those, like, I would say 6 to 9 months post breakup.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love Black women. I really do, because Black women, one thing we gonna do, one thing we know how to do is bounce back. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever seen on Twitter where it's like, oh, Black women will go through a breakup and they'll come out with like a master's degree, a revenge body, like $50,000. It's like actually crazy the way it's
Yeah.
like the switch up is insane. So
Yeah.
shout out to Black women for that. I love it. I
Period.
love to hear it. And your skin is glowing, so that investment definitely paid off, because we're so here for it.
Yes.
Um, well, I know that you are the founder and CEO of Ray Studios, and would love for you to tell us a little bit more about Ray Studios. But what advice would you give to aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to start their own creative ventures in the
Yeah,
art industry?
I think that as a creative, what I like to like tell people whenever people like reach out to me for advice or if I speak on a panel, like I as creatives and artists, like you are your own business, right? Like your artistic practice is literally how you're eating. Like so you have to really,
Mm-hmm.
and going back to how you were saying earlier that sometimes artists may get that like bad rep of like not being organized. And I think it's because they're truly totally into their artistic practice and they're not really seeing themselves as a business owner. When you're selling your work, when you are creating your content, whatever it is that you're doing to get these gigs, if you're a photographer, you're shooting people, you're reaching out to producers, creative directors, you're doing that type of outreach. That's the work that like a business owner is doing, would be doing. Um, so I think a lot of it at first is really just a mindset shift. Like, yes, you're an artist, but you're a creative entrepreneur or you're an entrepreneur, however you want to define yourself. Like
Mm-hmm.
understanding that that is, unless you're doing art for fun and you don't intend on making any money from art, that's a totally different thing. But if you are making money from art, then your art is a business. Um, and being able to just figure out strategic ways that works for you. Like not every business model works for everybody. Not every way that we approach our just making money works for everyone. Like if you are a painter or let's say an illustrator, that's probably a better example. If you're an illustrator, you can go the gallery route, right? And that's a different way of doing things. Or you could just be direct to consumer and create your own shop and show your
Mhm.
illustrations on social media and show people your creative process and build a following. And like, then you can use that money to curate your own exhibition, and sell tickets for people to come to your exhibition. And like, I've seen artists do things like that on their own without having to go through the traditional gallery um, trajectory. So yeah, I just feel like it's a lot of like that mindset of like if you are making money from your art, then you are a business owner and figuring out, you know, also like your role in that business space, right? Like I work as a producer, creative director, like that's my actual 9 to 5 um, experience within the media and advertising industry. So when I think about my own freelance work and my side hustle work in my business, like it's using the same business structure that I've learned from the agency environment and applying it to how I'm like getting clients and how I'm doing like my work on the side.
Mm.
Mm.
That is so true. I think looking at your business from a wide lens and not only falling into the like kind of the minutia of it, but also like taking a step back and looking at it from a strategic point of view and essentially working on your business, not just in it. That is like a really important framework for people to keep in mind, especially in industries where it can be a little bit more fluid with how you go about making those connections and opportunities.
Yeah,
But I really love that you outlined that and shared your own journey and process through that. That's really
yeah,
helpful for the future generation of artists and creatives. One thing that is kind of understated, I think, and overlooked is the impact of economic and financial support that artists have. And especially for Black creatives and artists, we can sometimes feel that we have to justify our rate or we
yeah.
are lowballed when it comes to offers or negotiations. So, can you share how more Black artists can feel affirmed in choosing their rates, their prices, and negotiating on the business side of the creative industry?
Yeah, I'm like, there's so many ways I can answer this. I think the first um, thing I would say is not only compare, like, do research, obviously, like, see how people are, what the industry standard is for the work that you're doing. I think is important because without that, you may end up lowballing yourself. And you may also accept jobs that you're like, okay, like this, for example, I just seen this morning a post on LinkedIn about a DP, which is a director of photography. Um, and typically the industry rate would be like $1,000 a day, and they saw a corporation offering 350 a day. If you did not know that $1,000 a day was the standard, you would be taking 350. So just like educating yourself on that, educating on like what are the different um, things that you can charge for. So if you're a photographer, yes, you're charging for your services, but you can also charge for your equipment. Like if you have to bring your own equipment, that's a rental fee. Add that into like your line items. You know what I mean? Um, I think also thinking about your lifestyle. What is it that you want in your life, and like how much money do you need to make in order to afford that? So if your lifestyle requires you to be making 150K a year, then your rates should be lining up to allow you to make 150K a year. I think a lot of it's also mindset and confidence. Like I think as Black people and women, um, it's hard for us to feel like we may feel like we're asking for too much, like we're asking for something that's way out of our capacity, our league, or what we feel like that we're worth. But also remembering that white people ask for this all the time without a sweat. They are not sweating to ask for that
Mm-hmm.
$1,000. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's just kind of remembering that like your competition, your counterparts are asking for more. So why aren't you at like, and all they can say is no. That's something that I'm also learning now too with like Ray Studios and like increasing our rates. I'm like, I'm not going to always offer a discount because before I would do that, especially if it was like a smaller Black owned, minority owned company, offer like a discount But now it's like, here is the rate. And if you ask me for a discount, then we can negotiate. But I'm not going to sell myself short with the assumption that, like, okay, let me do this person a solid, or they may not have it. They may think my rates are expensive and I just want a client. I think it's also knowing, like, what's priority for you at the moment. Like, if it's important for you to build your portfolio, so you may have to take lower paying gigs just so you can build your portfolio to then justify a higher rate, then that's okay too. But yeah, just knowing where you are, where your intentions are. Um, and I think there was another thing I was going to say about rates. Um, yeah, if it comes to me, I'll say it. But those would be
Yeah.
my initial thoughts right now.
Okay. Yeah, we can definitely circle back if you think of other things about rates and setting your negotiations. That's a very important
Oh,
topic. And it,
I remember.
go ahead.
Sorry.
You're right.
so,
Go ahead.
so one thing that I did, and this is again, like, I was working at Meta, so having access to larger budgets, right? What I did is, these larger companies that have these internal creative studios, creative agencies, they also hire, they have like a contingency workforce is what they call it. This is at Google, Netflix, Meta, all of the top Fortune 500 companies that at least are in the entertainment creative space. Um, I would look at what the hourly rate that they're paying their contingent workforce for the role that you're trying to do. So, meaning these rates are on the higher end. So if you
Mm.
can see what they're paying their people, then that gives you at least like an idea of like what also is fair on, again, a higher end scale. So like, for a producer, you may see that the rate is $100 an hour. So you should be charging somewhere around $100 an hour. And then I would also say for you to, like, this is a practice, right? So as you're working with clients, track your hours. And so if you are working on a project that's taking you 20 hours to do and you charge $100 an hour, or at least you budgeted your client that, and then you realize, oh, wait, this actually took me 30 hours and not 20 hours. Then you can, when you have your next client that's doing a similar project, you can better, negotiate what your rate is, because oh, this is a project, this type of work actually takes me 30 hours versus 20 hours based on this rate that I've, done my research on. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I want
That
to
is that's sauce. That's tea, okay?
say.
Because that you literally just sharing how to basically get, way more for your time. And I think this even applies to like people who do content creation or
Yeah,
freelance, in general, because it is time based, it's sometimes hourly based as well, or budget based on the project. So you just shared so much insight into how people can advocate better for themselves, and that is financial wellness. And that's,
yeah,
part of our collective healing and part of people wanting to pursue the arts so that they can afford the car, afford the place that they want to live in, afford to
exactly.
get a facial every month if they want to, or massage, and take care of themselves. And I have friends who are artists and photographers, and it's really hard on their body. Like, they have to go literally get their kinks like massaged out of their arms and legs because they're holding heavy equipment all day, and it's exhausting and it can really damage you on a physical level. So why
Yes.
not get the financial support that you need so that you can do your job and do it well, and also take care of yourself and not have it be this either or thing. It could be both and.
I love that you mentioned the physical impacts of this kind of work, because I think that's something that people don't consider. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, if you're a photographer, if you're a DP, if you're a painter, if you're some sort of tapestry artist, those are like heavy physical
Yeah.
work. So considering that, going back to like, what is a lifestyle that you want? If you know that your work is laborious and you would need a massage every month in order to rejuvenate yourself, consider what is the cost of a massage a month. Can you afford that with your current rates? No? Then spike up your rates, you know?
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. That's so, so, so helpful and insightful. Um, I think it's really important to also just, encourage people that are in the industry, or even outside of like the creative industry, to feel comfortable asking for more. And like you
Yeah.
said, and adjusting, if you did do a project or a job that took initially 20 hours but ended up taking longer, factoring in that difference so that next time you're, not overcompensating for your time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. I would love to know more about what some of your muses are when it comes to your creative practice. Are there any people that have really inspired you, even business wise too? Like I think about Issa Rae and like kind of like other women, Black women especially, who have really like paved the way. But are there any muses that you incorporate into your creative or business process? Or a better question is there anyone that you dedicate your work to?
I feel like I'd answer those questions differently. So I'm gonna answer the muse question, and I'm gonna answer the dedication because I feel like I dedicate my work to a different group of people.
Okay,
Um,
perfect.
so the people I would say whose career trajectory inspires me, whether it's the way that they have their business or their like how they go about visual storytelling. Um, I'm really inspired by Melina Matuskas. She's a
Mm-hmm.
director.
Yeah.
Um, I love the fact that she has her own production company, De La Revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also signed, I think, I don't remember what production company she is signed to. But regardless of the fact, what I love the most about her is one, her like stylistic approach as a director. I think there's things that I pull from visually, or there's like similarities in our stylistic approach. So when I see her work, it pushes me to hone in on certain things.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I also really love her career trajectory in terms of starting off as a music video director, getting into commercial work, getting into television, getting into film. I think
Mm-hmm.
there is this idea that as a director, you have to be a film director. Do you want to be a television director? Do you want to be a commercial director? And there's people who are, you know, interested in one lane, and that's fine. And because I feel like that's more of the norm. But seeing someone like her, I love Jen Nakuru, Terrence Nance, directors and creatives who have um, shown up in different industries, whether it is art. So Terrence Nance, he has had an exhibition, an art exhibition, but he has his own show, Random Acts of Finest, on HBO.
Oh
And
my
he's
God,
also a
I love
musician.
that show.
Yeah, that is my
I
bag. That type of
love
like
that
Afro
show.
surrealism, that is
Yes,
my bag.
yes.
Love
Me
it.
too. Me too.
Um, so yeah, like the fact that he's also been able to maneuver in different spaces.
Yeah.
Jenna Kuru, who's director, and I think she's a photographer based in London. She's Nigerian and Jamaican.
Mm-hmm.
Another woman who has like navigated the commercial space, the fashion film commercial space in particular, music video. She's also directed on Random Acts of Finest. Um, so yeah, directors who have been able to maneuver the industry in the ways that they want. Because for me, I'm not a person in a career that's like, oh, I just want to work in media. Oh, I just want to work in the art space. Oh, I just want to work in the fashion space. Like I'm interested in all of these things, and I'm trying to be able to like make my footing and in all of these spaces as a director, as a creative, as a producer, as all the things. So seeing other Black people throughout the diaspora, right? Like Melina Matuska, she's Jamaican, I think and Cuban, from the Bronx. Jenna Crew already said she's from the UK, and then Terrence Nance, he's African American from the South, right? So seeing all of these people throughout the diaspora who have honed in specifically within this genre of like Afro surrealism, just like the speculative fiction kind of space, whether it's Afrofuturism, Afro surrealism, all those things, and creating like their own like just stylistic twist and approach and viewpoint of that type of genre through their work, um, are people whose careers really, really inspire me. And then Issa Rae as like a businesswoman, how she's like
Mm-hmm.
maneuvering the industry is really, really inspiring. And then the people that I dedicate my work to, I dedicate it to truly the people of the diaspora, like the stories that I'm inspired by, um, and the people that I see every day are the people that I want this work for them. Like I think sometimes too, as Black creatives in spaces like New York and LA, being aware of like the Black elitism that can exist, where we're like, okay, I'm creating work for like the people who are cool and have the jobs and are in the spaces and for their opinions and for their like, check boxes and all those things, which is fine for being able to like create relationships and move forward in the industry, because you obviously want the people who have the budgets and are the decision makers to enjoy your work. But I think when the reason why I define myself as a Pan-African image maker and a curator is because a lot of my work is to amplify and highlight the people of the diaspora. So you see Pan-Africanism as a way of liberation for our people, and using art and creativity as a way to liberate and unite us by showcasing us in a beautiful light. Like my stylistic approach, or my director approach, is very stylistic, is very based on like fashion and beauty and adornment, and how we adorn ourselves and how we show up through movement also, and dance, and all these cultural elements. How does that define us? Black people are very expressive people as a race globally. How we, again, adorn ourselves, how we dance, how we laugh. Like, we're very expressive people. So my work is a reflection of our natural expressiveness, and it's for us.
Yeah. For us, by us, period. I love that. Thank you for also giving us, your insight into what inspires you, who inspires you. And I think this could be a great place for people who might be already in the industry or are curious about learning more about their creative inspirations and who to kind of like look up to, because we can't do it all on our own. There have been so many people who have come before us who can help it to make it a little bit easier and like guide us on our path. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that allows us to see the representation that we need in order to have the courage to pursue this this journey as an artist and as creatives. So I have a couple more questions for you, but would love to know, what does softness mean to you as a Black woman?
The first thing that comes to mind is ease. Like, things coming to me with ease, opportunities, money, all the things coming to me with ease. I feel like Black women, especially, I think women whose history, like ancestors, are a result of slavery, but I even think like people who are on the continent and its families have stayed on the continent, have had a history of labor. Labor is in our DNA, in comparison to like women in other racial groups may not have had to endure the level of labor that we have had to historically. So when I think of softness, I think of the removal of labor and ease in all facets.
That, I mean, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more on that. I think softness is it has such a deep meaning to different people. Every time I ask this question, I get a different response. And I just love that it's such a dynamic word, but it also shows us how many possibilities and how many ways we can incorporate softness into our life. And I just love what you shared about the ease, the opportunities, and the removal of labor from that process, especially as Black people, we've been exploited. So the removal of labor in that is extremely important, So I love that so much. So we're going to do a quick rapid fire questions. And are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. It'll be 5 fun questions, and it's whatever comes to mind. No wrong or right answers. Alrighty. Okay. So first question is, what is your favorite place to find creative inspiration in New York and in Los Angeles?
Creative inspiration in New York. I think general, like physical areas, like Lower East Side, Soho, Tribeca, all those areas. In LA, where do I go in LA? I think in LA, the places that provide the most inspiration is like when I'm in community with like Black creatives. So it can be whether it's like the Black Image Center Reparations Club, Gallery 90220, an event at Soho House, the one specifically downtown, because that's where all the Black people be at. Yeah, those would be the physical spaces. But I think I get the most inspiration from watching things. I like watching a lot of old movies through research and like conversation. Like this one artist in LA, she is like an abstract artist and she's African American, but she was kind of deep diving into fractals, which is how like a lot of African villages like years, hundreds of years ago were building their villages as fractals. And it's this really like scientific phenomenon. And so she does some of her work inspired by that. And when she was telling me about it, I was like, oh, what are fractals? And then I just did like a deep dive on
Mm-hmm.
fractals and like have now just thought about ways that I can incorporate it in like future projects. So just
Mm-hmm.
conversations with people who are doing interesting work that are kind of like nerds about certain things. I'm like, oh, what? I never heard about that. Let me like spend hours on YouTube and watching videos about people talking about fractals.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I love that. So you have like kind of the physical of New York, but also in LA, the conversations, the spaces, the third spaces and conversations that happen in LA.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very cool. If you could collaborate with any artist, past or present, who would it be and why?
I feel like I'm like tempted to say a profound answer. But it would be Rihanna. I love Rihanna so much.
Oh my
She
gosh.
is like growing up, like seeing her being just like so unapologetically herself, um, in all facets, music, fashion, beauty, like just has always been a humongous inspiration for me. Even a lot of my like references, I pull a lot of references from music videos in general.
Mm-hmm.
So I always like find things in her music videos to incorporate into my projects. So I love to collaborate.
We love Bad Gal Riri.
Yeah.
Um, Love that. What is your go-to comfort food after a long day on set or after a shoot or just a long day in general?
I am a carbs girl. I'm trying to not be, but I am. So rice, pasta, bread, any sort of like heavy carb meal is my go-to.
Mm, love a good carb. What is your favorite creative medium? Like what I know that you are an image maker, so you go from
Yeah,
film to photo to all different types of medium. So what is your favorite creative
that's a beautiful
medium to
question.
use?
I I want to say film. I love film. I love what film can do. Film is the hardest medium, though. It is a medium that requires the
Mm,
most resiliency. So it is very hard, but I love what it can do. Um, I love collage for myself. I don't really share a lot of my collage practice, but there's something about collage that's very childlike, and I
mm,
can explore myself a lot deeper with collage work. But yeah, I would say film because it's more impactful. It can say a lot more, but it requires a lot of time, it requires a lot of energy, resilience, and it requires a lot of money.
mm.
Yeah.
Last question for you is what is the song or album that never fails to get you in your creative bag?
Hmm. I don't know. I'm like, dude, I don't know if like when I'm that like doing like mood boarding and researching, do I like listen to music like that? I don't know. But um there's this song Just Like Magic by Ariana Grande that I really love that like when I'm like in a spirit of like, okay, like we are just like energetic and we're like a boss babe. Like I love that song. It's so inspiring. And then right now, the song that has me like super affirmed is that Megan Thee Stallion song. I can't pronounce it, but it's the um I get money, I'ma stop. So,
Oh,
so I love that song.
I think it's called Mamushi. Is it called?
Yeah, something like that. But it's
Yes.
like the lyrics are so affirming. Like I'm like, yeah, I do get money and I am a star. What's the up? So
Period.
yeah,
Yes. I love that song. Yeah, and I mean that song is blowing up right now.
yeah.
Um,
And I also
but
listen to a lot of gospel music, I would say too. If I'm like in a like wanting to
mm,
be inspired and motivated, I'll listen to some gospel. Joy by Pharrell too. If I want to get like hype, like if I have an interview, I'm gonna listen to that before and get myself energized. Yeah.
yes, get that energy and the vibes high and
Mm.
receptive. Well, thank you so much, Raven, for being on the podcast. We really, really
Thank
appreciate you
you.
being here. Please tell us how people can stay connected with you. Also, would love to know how people can see or get a glimpse of your exhibition. Last Night I Cried, Unveiling Liminal Spaces, and where to find you.
Yes. Yes, yes. So you can follow me on Instagram at Raven Cherise. That's RavenCherise. My website is ravenirabor.com, RavenIrabor.com. In terms of Last Night I Cried, we may be having something in LA in the fall, so look out for that.
Ooh.
An extension of the exhibition. I would love to bring it to New York as well, pending funding. So we're trying to get brand partnerships to bring it to
Yeah.
LA. I mean, sorry, to New York
Mhm.
sometime next year. And then we are working on some merch. So the artwork for Last Night I Cried
Ooh.
is available for purchase.
Oh,
But
awesome.
if people can't afford the actual original pieces, we will have some merch available that'll launch in the falls for people to like have some art, in their space, adorn on them, all the things. So look out for some
Yes.
merch, look out for LA in the fall, and then hopefully New York in the future.
Yes, and definitely check out the offerings that she has available, especially from the exhibition, because it is gorgeous. It is
Thank
beautiful.
you.
Images are incredible. You are definitely on a lot of people's mood board right now. I'm positive. So yeah,
Thank you.
you're on our mood board for sure. So
Yes.
yeah, definitely check it out and stay connected with Ravens. And I'm just excited to see all of the beautiful things that you'll continue to do as an artist
Thank
and as a
you.
creative. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. And I just want to say thank you so much for this platform. I know we didn't talk that much about the title, but I
Mm.
only came across the word luminosity and being liminal spaces after listening to your podcast. So that
Oh,
kind of helped inspire the title. Because I
thank
was like, what does
you.
it mean? What does liminal spaces mean?
Yeah,
And listening to that podcast really like allowed me to understand what that gap and what, how
yeah,
to also just define that for other people.
yeah,
And just knowing that art inspires art, like this is a form of art. I consider media and podcasting a form of art. And even
yeah.
the main title, Last Night I Cried, was inspired by SZA's album. So just like it's just always continuously in dialogue. Art
Right.
is continuously inspiring art. Black women are continuously inspiring Black women. So thank you for
Thank
your podcast.
you. That means everything. That means everything. I really, really appreciate that. And just really excited to cheer you on and see you grow as an artist and a creative. We've been following each other for a while now. So
Yeah.
it's great to like just be connected and have this conversation. And thank you so, so much. And we'll be sure to link everything in the show notes and stay soft. Thanks, Raven.
Thank you.
To stay connected, join Sadie Baddies on Instagram, Pinterest, Twitter, and more, and sign up for our monthly newsletter on SadieBaddies.com to stay in the loop. Sending you hella love and stay soft, baddie.